how to create and deploy Lambda functions on AWS. In this video, a collaboration with Luciano Mammino, we show you how you can create and deploy Lambda functions in Rust on AWS. Luciano is also an author of an amazing book. I will leave the link below. And so let's get started and see a couple of examples on how we can create and deploy Lambda functions on AWS. Let's see this example, and if you have any question, just drop them below. Let's get started.
If you want to do Lambdas and Rust, there is a superpower that you can just install, which is this project here, Cargo Lambda. When I have Cargo Lambda installed, I can do Cargo Lambda. So this is the superpower you get. So when you say new, we can say, I don't know, let's say, hello, Francesco. When we hit enter, what it's doing is going to start to ask us questions. And the first question is, okay, are you trying to do an HTTP function? Because this happens to be the most common use case, I think, for Lambda. For now, we just say yes. So let's see what did happen. So it did create a new folder called Hello Francesco. So if we go there and we open, let's say, VS Code, so it did create a main OS and an handler. Main is basically the code that runs only the first time that your Lambda is being bootstrapped, just initializes a loop. So you can imagine that this run loop is basically saying, every time there is a new event, run this function here. Sometimes you want to initialize, for example, a connection to a database. If you get multiple events coming to the same Lambda, you probably want to keep around. So you don't want to reinitialize them for every single event. Once you get to the run, basically what happens is basically say, okay, every new event that comes in this case is going to be an HTTP request. This is the code that is going to handle that. By the way, interesting thing, it also generates tests for you. Events coming in and responses going out are actually JSON objects so that they can be abstracted across all runtimes and all types of events. We can see it here in the dependencies that this Lambda HTTP is part of the runtime, but it's actually a higher level abstraction that is specific for HTTP. We'll see later on when we see the other demo that we can get a little bit lower level and start to see the JSON structure. But when you do HTTP, they actually abstracted it with a nice request and response object. So it's almost like using Axum or any other web framework that you might have used before, where you have to think, okay, there is a request coming in a request I can have headers, I can have query string parameters, I can have a body, I can parse all of that stuff and do something with it. And eventually I have to return a response. In a response, you have a status code. You can also have headers, and you can have a body with whatever. In this case, it's just going to be text. It can be JSON. It can be whatever you want. In this case, what we are trying to do is we try to see if there is a query string parameter called name. We can pass in the URL # name equals something. But if we don't pass that, it's just going to assume the value is word. And then basically we are building a message that says, hello, whatever is the variable, this is an AWS Lambda HTTP request. Then we use this message to produce a response, 200. The content type is just a text HTML. Actually, here, if we want to make it fancy, we can make this one bold.
We are not actually using a web framework for it. We are just using this crate. So we are generating this HTTP request and response, just handling this with this, let's say, official Lambda HTTP crate.
Yeah, it is the official one. As I said before, you could also do all of this in Axum and even have like a routing layer, because here you don't have any routing. Like if you wanted to do routing, you have to do it yourself and check. If you use Axum, there are ways to wrap it in a way that then runs with the Lambda model. But this will be, I think, the approach I would use for most cases. I think I would use only Axum if I already have the application written in Axum and it makes sense for me to bring it into Lambda and I don't want to do the rework.
The goal here is to be as fast as possible.
Exactly, because
So
you don't
not using a framework, because in Rust is fast, but we don't want to slow this down. Right.
Exactly.
I think this is the main reason why we are doing this, using this crate instead of using a web framework. Web frameworks are used to create web applications and not Lambda functions. Probably it would, as you said, probably it would work, but we would lose some.
It will be a little bit slower for sure.
If you use a different language, probably there are dedicated packages for that.
Exactly. It will be a little bit different. For instance, if you use Node.js, actually, Node.js is probably even a weird example because you can use it with TypeScript or JavaScript. And if you use it with TypeScript, there are packages that give you all the types so that you can actually have nice autocomplete and type checking for And for Python, it's the same. Python, you can also use it, type it and untyped it. And there are packages that will also give you all the type definitions to make your life a little bit easier and make sure you don't do mistakes. This is one of the characteristics of Lambda, that even if you have exactly the same business logic, you could write it in many different programming languages. This is actually some of the cases we had at work when I was able to use Rust and Lambda. They had an entire application written in Python, and it didn't make sense to rewrite all of it. We could just rewrite the single functions that were the most important in terms of performance and cost, and we had a massive benefit. So at the end, it was a kind of an hybrid application where most of the functions were still in Python, but the ones that really needed to be fast and cheap, you could rewrite just those in Rust, so maybe 1 or 2 functions, and still get huge benefits. So the next step is, okay, how do we test this to know it works? So we can do Cargo Lambda watch on one side. So this is already compiling all this code, and you can see that there are actually quite a few dependencies that are coming from this Lambda HTTP. So it is a little bit of a framework and actually uses Tokio under the hood. You can see here, like, for example, Tokio Stream or Hyper. Here, I think we have to go inside this folder. What we can do is Cargo Lambda invoke. Now, this is going to fail because in this project, you might have multiple Lambda functions. So maybe you're working on a project with many events. So you will have a Lambda function for each event. So the first thing we need to give it is the name of the function. And this one by default is called Hello Francesco. So what we need to do first is saying Hello Francesco. And you can see the autocomplete was already giving me stuff. Now, this is still going to fail because it's basically telling me, sure, you want to invoke this function. I understand that, but what is the event, right? Because here we're kind of simulating an HTTP request, but we haven't given the system any HTTP requests. And we said that those requests are just JSON. So one thing that we need to do is to go and figure out what is the JSON for an HTTP request in Lambda. Thankfully, Cargo Lambda makes that easy because there is a repository here with a bunch of examples. So these are basically all the events you can get with Lambda, or most of them. And there is also HTTP ones, which I have put here. There is a lot of stuff, but hopefully we can skip through. Like, you can see, okay, what was the path of that request? What was the method? What are the headers? And then we have query string parameter, for example, here. The name is me. We can actually tell Cargo Lambda to use this particular event, and they have a little shortcut for that. Data example, API GW, which stands for API Gateway request. We're going to download that JSON that I just showed you and use it as an input for our Lambda function. This is basically invoking the Lambda that is running locally here, and we see the output of it. Now, this is a bit ugly, so let's make it a little bit easy to digest. So we can see here that the response was the status code is 200. There were no special headers. The content type is text HTML. And then this is the body of the response. Hello, me, because that query string was saying here me. So this was our variable. This is an AWS Lambda HTTP request. Okay, what if I want to test that if me something else, this is actually working? We could download this file here into, let's do a folder, events, and we can say, cool, I actually have this one here. So we can download this example locally. Then we can change it. So for instance, we'll see that the file is here inside events. We can change anything we want. For example, here we can say Francesco. Actually, I'm not really sure if it's going to use this one or this one, so let's change them both. We can invoke it again, but this time we can say data file. So rather than using a common example, we can use the local event. So we can say events HTTP JSON, and this time is actually running our local function here, but passing this JSON here that we can change. And as you can see, this text was updated. So this is kind of proving our application works. And actually, one last test we can quickly do is what happens if we remove this and if we remove this. So this is still valid JSON. So we said unwrap or world.
Similar to the pipes we do in JavaScript.
Of course, you could decide to throw an error if you needed that parameter, right? How do we build it? We can say Cargo Lambda build. We want to use release mode because you know that when you build for production, release mode will give you much smaller and faster binaries.
Yes.
And another trick we can use is ARM64. And this is another cool thing that Cargo Lambda does. ARM64 is actually cheaper on AWS. It's just as easy to compile in this particular case. So why not, right?
You can build on different architectures based on the cost.
Exactly.
The cost.
99% of the cases you can in Rust, it's just as easy to build for ARM. So because it's going to be cheaper, that's basically my default. Cargo Lambda itself is actually pretty clever. And here I am on a Mac. It happens to be ARM64 because it's one of the silicon chips. But let's say that I was on a Windows with an x86 chip. Cargo Lambda can actually cross-compile for me. So it makes it super easy to do this kind of stuff as the default again. So one more reason to use Cargo Lambda, because otherwise, good luck configuring your compiler to do all of this. Okay, so the build was completed successfully. And now we can deploy it. The command to deploy it is, again, a Cargo Lambda command. And we can just say deploy. Now there is a little bit of a shortcut. So this enable function URL. I said before that when you do an HTTP Lambda, you need to have some kind of web server. Generally, you do that with either API gateway or a load balancer. Are a little bit more complex to set up, and we don't want to do it now. So there is a shortcut that is called function URL. This is a relatively new feature of Lambda, where you can give a Lambda a URL of its own. So that URL is actually managed by the Lambda service. You don't have to create a load balancer.
Route.
Exactly. You will get a URL.
These Lambda functions become sort of the handler.
Exactly. So it will handle an HTTP request on its own. The annoying bit is that you cannot customize this URL, so you get like an AWS stuff we'll see in a second. So this is the URL. So that means that we can click here and we can see this URL in action. Maybe I should make it bigger. So by default, it's giving us hello world. But what if we add question mark name equal Francesco the best? And that's what we get. Super quickly, literally 2 minutes, show you the other demo, which is not even a full demo. It's just showing you what happens if rather than doing HTTP, you pick something else. Cargo Lambda new, my scheduled job. Imagine this is the case where you want to do something on a scheduled job. Like, I don't know, somebody needs to send an email. Doesn't make sense to send that email on the hot path of your HTTP web server. Probably you just schedule it, and then in the background, that email can also go off. 1 minute later, nothing is going to happen to the user, right? Generally, you want to use like a queuing system like SQS in AWS to implement something like that. So the event is a message being dropped on the queue system. So it's not an HTTP. So here we want to say no. So here, what happens when you say no, then this tool is actually helping you to scaffold your project. So it's saying, okay, if it's not an HTTP, tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. And this is like all the events you can have, pretty much all the events you can have with Lambda. There are, I don't know, probably about 80 or 90, and you can even search. So we know we want to do SQS, and this is the first one we want to use. If we do ls, now we have 2 projects. The first one, the HTTP, and the second one, my scheduled job. So if we go to my scheduled job and open it with code, so we can see the code. So the first thing I want to show you is that the Cargo.toml did use the Lambda runtime, which is a little bit of a lower level abstraction. Even the Lambda HTTP is actually built on top of the Lambda runtime, but it just gives you nicer objects, request and response. So it's giving you the runtime and it's giving you Tokio straight away. And then it's using this AWS Lambda events crate. So this crate actually contains all the types that we saw before, but not just the inputs, but also the outputs. Because, for example, when you process jobs from a queue, you can also, generally you receive the jobs in batch, like 20 messages in one go. And then you can tell AWS, maybe the first 19 succeeded and the last failed. So you have a specific response object you can return to tell that to AWS. And then AWS is going to be smart enough to reschedule only the last one in the batch rather than all the other 19s that succeeded. And then the code, what does it look like? The main is exactly the same. We call run and we say this is the function that needs to run on every event coming in. The under now doesn't have a request or response anymore, but it does have an SQS event type. In this case, by default, it didn't implement the specific response type because that's optional, but there is even a response type if you want to. This event has a payload, and if we do payload dot, it knows what the JSON is going to look like. So there will be a record, there is a message ID, that there is a body for every message, and so on. So the cool thing is that with Rust and this scaffolding tool, you get all the types straight away. So even if you don't know all the details of each JSON, it makes the experience extremely easy. Like you don't need to check the documentation for each thing you want to do. At the end of the day, everything is JSON, like this SQS event. I don't know if we can see the implementation here. Yeah, exactly. It's basically using Serdi. It's basically a struct that deserializes a JSON that contains records, basically. And then records is SQS message, which also uses Serdi. And you can see these are all the fields you will find in the raw JSON. Just want to say thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. And thank you everyone for staying around and asking lots of interesting questions. Hopefully you find it useful. Feel free to find me on socials if you have more questions. I'm always happy to answer people and connect and make new friends. So